Come along with me on my typical day off. Today is my day off, and it's getting towards mid-February, and my firewood supply in my basement is getting pretty low. I have this stack of firewood along the barn wall here ready to go and burn this year. It's plenty dry enough to burn this year. It's a nice mix of maple and ash. There's some elm mixed in here, a little bit of beech, a whole bunch of different trees, but they're all plenty dry enough to load up and burn this winter. And you can see I started by stacking it nice and neat along the edges because I fit way more wood in the bed of the truck if I stack it neater, and then I just fill in the center. We get all of our wood in our basement by driving around to the back part of the house, and there's a window that pops out, and I simply just throw all the wood through that window. Yeah, it's a whole lot of lifting, but it's way easier than having to haul it down stairway or anything like that. You just drive right up, toss it in, and now it's in the basement in advance, and it's drying out even more while it's down there by the wood stove. You can see there along the wall, that's just a little bit of the wood that's left in the basement. So I definitely needed to get more in here, and there's supposedly a big snowstorm on the way, so it's definitely time to throw more wood. I just got to get the last little bit that's in the center of the truck there, and then I'm off to the woods. My mission today is to drop a couple trees, not necessarily for firewood this year, they're actually going to be living trees, but with the snow on the way, I want to drop a couple more trees, and the deer and rabbit and all the wildlife will benefit from this, especially if we get 6 to 8 inches of snow. All these branches that are going to be sticking up out of the snow have little tiny buds already on them. That's right, the trees already have tree buds on them. And that woody browse is a delicious treat to everything out here in the woods. Birds will eat it, rabbits will eat it, squirrels will be all over this, even raccoons, and yes, the deer. In fact, woody browse makes up a huge amount of the deer's diet in the wintertime. All the time and money spent on all the hunting food plots that people put in, and it makes up way less of a deer's diet than what actual woody browse out here in the middle of the woods makes up. So I'm driving way out here to the back of the woods today, and I'm going to pick a couple trees to cut down and hopefully push them backwards into the woods. I don't necessarily want these trees laying out in the field, with the exception of one that I'm going to cut out behind me here in a second. Trying to use the tractor bucket to push over this tree, and it wants to go, but the tree behind it is stopping it from falling, and the easy solution is just to cut down the tree that's behind it as well. These trees will fall backwards into the woods, and once they are laying there, it's going to provide not only food for the animals, but it's going to provide some nice cover for the rabbits, pheasants, and all the other little critters out here in the woods. I've just got to make a quick notch in this tree that's a little deeper into the woods here. The one I'm pushing over right now is actually an oak tree, and you can see there the way they both fall together. It's kind of planned that way so the branches interlock and mix up. It makes a nice brushy area, a little bit of a windbreak, but these trees are actually going to continue to live. I'm going to back up here, and you can see the trees are still attached to the base, and the trees will live. They're going to keep on growing. The sap and the moisture will come up through that remaining lip right there, and the trees this year will green up and continue to live. The branches will actually start to turn up, and these could live another 4 or 5 years just like this. This is the other tree I'm cutting down. This is actually a big old elm tree, and it's just really gnarly. The branches were out all over the place. It was leaning over the field. It wasn't a good, healthy looking tree anyways. So I'm taking it down, and it fell into the field. There was no way it was going to fall anywhere else for how much it was leaning. And typically I would take the tractor bucket and just push this all out of the field, but I'm actually going to just log it up so the smaller chunks of wood can start to dry for firewood next year. And I'm going to leave it laying here because, again, the branches from this will provide a lot of really good wildlife food. Later on this winter, I'll come back and I'll gather up all these logs that I've cut up and throw them in the back of the truck. Right now, this is really green or wet wood, and it's going to be super heavy. So the longer I wait and let this wood sit here, the drier and the lighter it will get. And then of course I'll have to split it up and put it in the barn so it can dry a little bit better before it's burnt next year, or probably in reality 2 years from now before it's dry enough to actually burn. This is what's left of the trunk, and I'm going to drop that down, and then I'm going to smooth it out so that you can see all of the rings on this tree trunk. Let's take a quick look here. All of these little tiny tree buds. I know it's crazy to think it's early February. I think it's the 11th. And there's tree buds all over on this. And all of these tree buds and all of these little tips on all of these little branches. Like I said, this is excellent deer, rabbit, pheasant, any kind of bird. Even raccoons will come out and eat this. So I'm going to actually set up my trail cams over this and hope they don't blow over in the storm coming up. This is the base, the trunk, the biggest, widest part of this tree that I just cut down. How many rings do you think are in that? You can go back and pause that if you want. Comment below. Let me know how many rings you count, because that's how old this tree was. Like I said, it was a gnarly looking elm tree. This is a beech tree, and I absolutely have a love-hate relationship with beech trees. You can see I've tried to notch that back just a little bit. This really big beech right here in the spring and summer, it just blocks all the light from hitting the ground out here in the woods, and it stops everything from growing underneath it. And they're also hollow, which makes a really good habitat for raccoons, and I don't like that. So this whole tree needs to come down, but it's surrounded by other dead trees and too many for me to cut back. So every time I come out here, I make another cut, and then I cut more, and then I cut more. And I'm just really hoping that one of these days when I'm not anywhere near it, the tree blows over so I can cut it up. There's no good escape route for me to just cut it and fall it while I'm standing right there. So I'm hoping it falls when I'm not in the woods. Now I'm driving back up to the house because it's time to fix the fire, but I noticed that some of the fire brick is coming out of this wood stove, so I'm going to actually let the fire burn down just a little bit, and once it's completely burnt down, I'm going to fix that fire brick back in there. Before I head back outside, I'm still down in my basement and I have a fish tank set up down here. These are all the fish that were out in my pond that I could catch and bring in before winter. I didn't know for sure if they'd survive the winter or not with the pond freezing over, so I caught them in a minnow net and I brought them into the house. You can see there's some goldfish down in there. Those darker fish are actually shiner minnows that were out in the pond. We had bought them for fishing and they made it back to the house, so I dumped it in the pond and they survived in the pond at least long enough for me to catch them and throw them in the basement. So there's a couple shiners, lots of goldfish, and this spring once it warms up and thaws out, I'll be putting them right back in the pond. I also am going to be taking my ash bucket out. We have a 50-gallon ash bucket that we keep down in the basement, and those are the ashes from our wood stove that we've accumulated over about 2 weeks. So you can see we burn quite a bit of wood. That's 2 weeks worth of ash, and it's super easy. I just dump them out here in the middle of the field, spread them out a little bit, and it becomes nutrients for the field. I do this quite regularly. They also make really good grip for traction on the icy driveway if I decide to go that route, but then if you step in it, you're tracking all that nasty through your house. Back out to the woods now. I'm hiking around out here, and I'm going to check some of my trail cams. This is the first trail cam I'm going to get the video out of, and I'm going to play that video right now. This is the other trail cam that I'm getting video off. It's actually very near the first one you just saw, and there were 79 videos on that first trail cam. You just saw a quick glimpse of them. There's 72 on this one, and if you look close in the left-hand corner, you might see the infrared lights kick on from the other trail cam. This is one of 4 elevated blinds that I've built out in the woods. This one is the buckhorn, and you can see why. It's got tons of buckhorns hanging off of it. Some of them I've shot, some of them I have found. Some are antler sheds, some are from deer that someone else has shot, and I found the deer and took the rack off. They're not all mine, but still it gives it its name, the buckhorn. Now I'm just going to go hiking through the woods here. I like to follow deer trails around, especially this time of year, because a lot of the bucks have already dropped their antlers, and I'm always super hopeful I'm going to find a really nice antler shed walking around out here. The woods is definitely beautiful this time of year. The hiking was a little rough because all of the snow is like glazed over with ice, so every step I took was either slippery or I broke through the ice down to the snow and ground. Even though I didn't find any antler sheds, I still had a really good time walking around out here and following the animal tracks. I saw cat, deer, squirrel, and raccoon tracks all out here in the woods, along with plenty of rabbit droppings. There's definitely a lot of wildlife out here. Now it's noon, and I'm about to head in for lunch.